And we're live. Welcome back, Shifties. Welcome back to Shift the Journey. I'm your host, Tito Amogus. Today's guest is Kristen Mandello. Kristen Mandello, yay! Kristen started out in veterinary services. I don't even know, like, how do you even say that? That field is not anything to do with anything that I've ever done. Actually, not
It's
gonna
a
say
vet,
anything
but
that
just a
I've ever
different kind
done.
of vet, right?
Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about your career journey because we're all about that. So let's get started. So tell me where you're from originally.
So I grew up just outside of DC in Columbia, Maryland, and spent the first 15 years of life there. And then things got interesting and started moving around. I spent 2 years in Jacksonville, Florida. So I started high school in Columbia, Maryland, and
Hmm.
then spent 2 years of high school in Jacksonville, Florida. And then my last year of high school was in Herkin, West Virginia,
Oh my
which is
goodness.
a town just outside of Huntington, West Virginia, known for Marshall and that football team and that sort of thing. So
Oh,
yeah, so I moved around quite a bit in high school, which was a broadening
oh,
experience.
I bet. Were you a military brat?
No, I sound like one, right? With all that
Yeah.
moving, but like not moving at the beginning. No, my dad worked for CSX, the railroad,
Oh
and
yeah.
then there was some movement about moving everything down to Jacksonville, where the headquarters were, and then moving out to where certain business units were, which is what took us to West Virginia. But yeah, it was a good opportunity to meet different kinds of people and learn how
Yeah.
to make friends, especially after being in one place, pretty much your whole life, and kind of in that beltway space of Maryland, Virginia, DC,
Mhm.
going out into the rest of the country and realizing, oh, everybody doesn't constantly talk about the government and everything that's going on.
Oh yeah. I spent 2 weeks on a yeah, was it 2 weeks? Yeah, it was 2 weeks on a client visit in DC last summer.
Mhm,
And let me tell you, that was a very different experience. It's like,
mhm,
oh, this is interesting. Yeah, so I guess like, your environment really uh it really I guess influences, how you think about things, what you think about what you talk about. And so I would think that yeah, if you're from the DC area, that yeah, a lot of times they're probably talking about the government.
mhm.
Um, oh, hey, you know what? One feature I forget to tell people every time I talk about it in the studio. We didn't talk about it today because we were in the studio for a very short amount of time before we came out here. But is our chat? Our chat is live, so this goes out to LinkedIn,
Oh, okay.
goes to my YouTube channel, and it also goes to Facebook, so my mom can watch me. Hi, mom. And so if anybody's out there and you want to ask a question or you want to just say hey, and I'll put it on the screen. Um, that's Pastor Carlos. Hey, Pastor Carlos. Greetings to you, my friend. I was going to say something in Spanish and then it just blanked. I'm so very. It's a long story. Anyway, I went on a trip down to Belize in March to help
Oh,
lead a
cool.
worship leaders conference, and Pastor Carlos was it was his church where we did it. So
Nice.
anyway, that's I have a question about something in your background. That's not a virtual background. That's your real background, right?
You are looking at what's behind me.
So, so who plays piano in your family?
I do. Well, I mean, I guess I do. I took
What,
piano lessons for a long, long time.
what does that mean? I guess I do.
Well, I mean, I don't play it very much anymore. It's a gigantic instrument, and this is the best place for it in our house.
Uh-huh.
I mean, sometimes I do. I've tried to teach our children how to play. Nobody's really that interested. So, but
Uh,
it's nice to play around on sometimes.
yeah, yeah. Okay, well, I didn't know that. I didn't know you were a musician. I myself am a musician. So,
I mean, I don't think I'd call myself a musician.
well, how many years did you take lessons?
Oh gosh, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years. Like, I know how to read music, and I know how to play a few songs, from memory.
Yes, and
That a
so
musician does not make.
that's something. Um, I don't know. We're a small part of the population. I also I started on piano,
Okay.
and I always forgot to practice and, lost my books and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And so went like first through 4th grade, 1st through 5th grade piano, 5th and 6th grade violin and trumpet, 7th grade through college cello, and then when I was 33 I picked up the guitar. And
So mostly strings instruments.
yeah, and then and then in high school I also played trombone. And then so from 10th grade on, right when I picked up trombone, I was playing trombone and cello. And from 10th grade on, I only read bass clef. So
Hmm.
you, as somebody who can read music,
Mhm.
you are a lot rarer than somebody like me. And I'm like so focused, like I can only read bass clef. I can't like look at treble clef and go, oh, that's a C, or hey, that's an F, or whatever.
Right,
And
and have
I'm
your
gonna have to count.
independent things.
So crazy. Anyway, enough about me. Back to you. Um, oh, this is funny. What is happening? Okay, so let's
More
see,
fun.
where were we? So you finished high school in West
Mhm.
Virginia,
Mhm.
and then what was your plan there? Did you have people in your family who were into veterinary medicine? Were you like Dr. Doolittle with a lot of animals and stuff? What's
No,
that like?
well, I mean, I'm an only child, and so the family dog, I spent a lot of time. I I was close with the family dog. I didn't have any siblings. And no, my mom was a teacher. My dad worked for the railroad most of his career. So I really like science. I was kind of more the math and science person
Mhm.
than literature. And so any kind of scientific field really appealed to me. I loved biology. And, I was just kind of one of those kids. I think so many kindergartners are like, I want to be a veterinarian. And then they find other things and want to be. I was just that kid that just, that stayed my interest. And then it started to be kind of a competitive thing because everybody said, oh, it's so difficult to get into vet school, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, I think I
Huh.
could do that. Let me see if I can do
Challenge
that.
accepted.
Exactly. And so then when it was time to look for a college, I limited my search really to universities that had a vet school associated with them. And at that time,
Okay.
there were only 26 or so accredited vet schools in the US. So, that really limits things down. So I visited Georgia, Florida, Ohio State, Auburn. I think those are the main ones that I went and visited. And it was just something about Athens, where the University of Georgia is, that just
Go
I
dogs.
knew, yes, go dogs. I was just like, this is where I want to be. This place is like magical, and it really was. Like I loved my time at University of Georgia so much so that I teach there part time now.
Mhm.
And my daughter actually is going to be going there next fall, so
Oh, awesome.
we're very, very much pro bulldog family. But um yeah, so and then going, doing an undergrad, preparing for vet school. At that time, University of Georgia didn't have a pre-vet program. It was an animal and dairy science program, which which seemed fine until I got to my junior and senior year, and you really had to pick a focus. So either, cattle, dairy, swine, like some sort of production animal focus. And I was like, well, I don't want to do per se only production animal medicine. I'm interested in
Mhm.
small animal and other things. So, but there really wasn't a path forward for me with that. So, fortunately, since I was in the honors program there, I was able to create an interdisciplinary degree with a professor, Dr. Carl Espily, who let me work in his lab. Hi, Dr. Espily, if you're watching. And that allowed me to kind of create a good pre-vet path. I even took, I think, one or two classes in the veterinary school when I was in undergrad, immunology and something else, I think, to kind of, you know get more experience in that area. And then I
Mhm.
interned and did some different kind of work because I wasn't sure what kind of a veterinarian I wanted to be.
Yeah.
um, a
What
lot
kind
of
of
people,
vets?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, what kind of paths are there for veterinary medicine?
Yeah. So at that time, you go to vet school and you get you learn everything. You learn dogs and cats, you learn cattle, you learn sheep, you learn goats, pigs, chickens, I mean, everything. So then beyond that, you can go on and do an internship and a residency and specialize in a particular area, whether it's a particular species, internal medicine specialty, or dermatology, ophthalmology, surgery, whatever it is. Or you can graduate vet school and go out and be a general practitioner. Basically, once you pass your boards and your license, you can practice on horses one day and dogs the next. So, so just really kind of trying to understand, okay, well, what do I want to do? What do I want to focus on in vet school? What do I want to do after vet school? I worked in a small animal clinic. I worked at the Cincinnati Zoo because for a while I thought I wanted to be a zoo vet.
What?
And that was pretty fun. I worked in the elephant house when they had a baby.
What?
Yeah. And got
That's
to take care of
crazy.
and be in the elephant show. The elephant would pick me up on its leg.
What?
Yeah. There's
That's
pictures somewhere.
oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh man, what a cool experience.
Yeah. So, I mean, just, it was just kind of like there's a huge world of animal health out there. What do you want to do, So, so anyway, so I went to Georgia, did that, graduated with an interdisciplinary degree. And then it was, okay, now you got to get into vet school. And so fortunately I got into Ohio State and went to, got my DVM at the Ohio State University. Go Bucks. Sometimes that is a difficult situation in the fall during football because many times the Bulldogs are playing the Buckeyes and you got to pick a side.
I mean, I guess, at least you don't really have to change your colors, but
Right.
that's at least well, I'm just glad you didn't like go to Auburn or something. That would be crazy. What is
Right.
that? Or Florida?
Florida is a fantastic school, but that would be really hard to be a Gator at the same time.
That's so funny. Yeah, you'd be like, I have an identity crisis. Oh yeah, that's crazy. And so, when you graduated from Ohio State or the Ohio State, is it really the? Okay, from the Ohio State University. Did you like what was your like your next plan? What was the deal there?
Yeah, at that point I thought I just wanted to be a small veterinarian. After going through the
Okay.
training and doing ambulatory work and working in, with all different species, I wanted to do companion animal medicine. And so I came back down to Atlanta, and started looking for a job in a small animal clinic. And I found a job in Marietta, Georgia at Terrell Mill Animal Hospital. Hi, any Terrell Mill people out there. Dr. Lee Eisen hired me, took a chance on me, fresh out of school. But it was an incredible experience. It was a 6-doctor practice, very busy. Saw lots and lots of, Ohio State was very busy. Ohio State was one of the larger vet schools at the time. So we had a very high caseload. And I realized how different that was maybe than other places, because when I went into practice, some of these things I was like, oh yeah, I saw one of those, or oh yeah, another student that was on my service, had a case similar to that. And they were like, really? You saw this in vet school? And because Ohio State was so big and so busy, we saw a lot of stuff. So, and it was kind of the same thing with this 6-doctor practice too, where it was very busy, very well run, very organized. So that helped me to learn. Well, it helped me first figure out that yes, I had graduated vet school, but I knew nothing. I had so much to learn from like a practical standpoint. Yeah. And all of the vets, and especially the techs, the technicians, the veterinary technicians that I worked with, taught me like the actual real practice of veterinary medicine is just one part of it. It's the real stuff. And understanding how to interact with clients. And interact with the different staff and all of the business aspects of a small animal practice.
Yeah,
I felt very fortunate to luck into that opportunity right out of vet school.
that's so awesome.
Yeah.
So how long did you work there?
I was there for 3 years. And
Mm,
then I started to feel like, okay, this feels a little copy paste. Like, I
mm,
get it. Like there's these types of cases, they're the puppy and kitten well checks, spays and neuters, you have an occasional emergency, a couple really interesting internal medicine cases. But it was kind of like, okay, got that done. Now, what do we want to do next?
mm.
Do you want to own a practice? Do you want to be a partner in a practice? It didn't really seem like a good fit for me to continue just doing that consistently. And so that's when I was looking at other options. And I was always really interested in nutrition, both for small animal and production animal.
Mhm.
Back in vet school, and I thought I would actually work for a nutrition company like Hills or Purina or something like that.
Okay.
I was really interested in data and kind of population medicine and that sort of thing. So, I just had a conversation with our veterinary technical services person from Marielle at that time, but prior to Marielle being acquired by Boehringer Ingelheim. This was 2006, so about 20 years ago. And he said, "Why don't you apply for a job at Marielle, which is right here, basically within Atlanta."
Somebody's trying to talk. Your guard dog is alerting. What's happening?
He's not very obedient. So, oh my goodness. Oh, there's people walking by outside. So, yeah, so I thought, okay, I'll try that. And I applied for a position in veterinary technical services at Marielle, kind of
Uh-huh.
one of the vets that another vet would get with if they called in and asked a question or had a problem or something like that. And I thought, yeah, that'd be great to help other vets and learn about the products and all of that. And it didn't work out. There wasn't a position open, but they'd already found somebody to fill that position. But they said, we have this position in pharmacovigilance. And I was like, pharmaco what?
That was my same exact reaction when I was told that I was working with you on the pharmacovigilance. I'm like, I'm not even sure how to say that word.
Right. Everybody just says PV because it's too long of a word to say or spell.
So what
Yeah.
can you explain to the audience what pharmacovigilance is?
Sure. So this is true on the human health side as well as the animal health side. A lot of people are surprised actually that this goes on in animal health. But as most people know, when a product is being developed in the pre-approval period, there's in vitro and in vivo studies, there's clinical trials, there's lots of work that's done to determine, is that pharmaceutical, vaccine, other therapy safe and efficacious. But of course, there is a limit to how much work can be done in the pre-approval period. And that work is done to a point to be able to get to a comfortable level of, yes, this product is doing what it's supposed to do and it's safe. And so then the product is approved or licensed, and then it's out, it's available to be prescribed out in the field. It has product labeling that explains how it's to be used and why it's to be used and things to look out for. But that's limited information based upon what's known at the time of the product approval. So after a product's out there in the market being used on label, off label with other products in patients with pre-existing medical conditions, all of these variables that really are not in place during the clinical trials, that information we collect. So companies and health authorities collect this information and continuously monitor product safety and efficacy throughout the product's life cycle. So it's kind of that R&D arm that continues to follow the product, looking for any unexpected, previously unidentified risks or problems or changes in efficacy based upon environmental changes or patient population, Also, all sorts of different things can play into that. So that's really what pharmacovigilance is. It's real from a high level, but there's so much to it.
Yeah.
You know, there's the collection of the information, there's the systems that manage that, there's signal detection, which is what my current role is focused on. How do you weed through all this noise and detect if there truly is a potential issue or safety concern, and what do you do with that once you find it, and how do you make sure that that information is making its way back into R&D so that that can be utilized to create even safer and more efficacious products moving forward. So there's a lot of moving parts. Plus, layered on top of that is that in some, but not all countries, there are regulatory requirements for how and when and why these adverse events need to be reported, and electronic standards and an international aspect to it. Some types of adverse events are only reported in the country where they occur. Others, you have to report them to every country that that product is approved in. So just keeping all of that straight feels like a full-time job. So, and then you layer on top of that, if you've acquired companies or you have distribution agreements with companies, making sure that all of those agreements and alignments are done and happening and are in place. So that's why it takes a team.
Yeah.
It takes a whole team to do
That's
all
nuts.
that.
So, how long did it take you to like really grasp? I don't know, like how do you say that? Grab a hold of that role, like really grasp it and like really start to go, you know what? I really like this.
Yeah. At first, I didn't. At first, I thought it was really boring because it felt like bean counting. You know, it was a lot of, you know, making the compliance aspect of it, making sure that cases were reported and calculating things and trying to identify signals. Sorry, my cat is walking in front of our. Let me go put this little pupper.
All right. We'll be back to our regularly scheduled program. I can't even say that. I was trying to make a joke, but hey, whatever. Sometimes when we're on these shows, other people want to talk. Sometimes the things that want to talk are not people. And back to our regularly scheduled program. Here we go.
Yes. Sorry for that. I just didn't want that to continue on the
It's
whole
okay.
time. But yeah, so that's kind of PB, and oh, when did I really kind of, you know, figure out that I like
Yeah.
this? It felt very like we were just, you know, doing what was required by the regulation. And the more I looked and read these cases and really looked at kind of the ebbs and flows of reporting, particularly with new products or products that have seasonality to them, I thought, you know, this is really valuable business intelligence. This is our customer choosing in their busy lives, whether they're a veterinarian or pet owner or producer, to stop what they're doing, flip over that box, find the 800 number, call it, maybe be on hold for a minute or two, and communicate to us about a question or a concern or something about our product. That's super important.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, that's what every company wants.
Oh yeah.
Because if you understand that, then you understand, you know, how the product might not be used properly, or how it might not be clear what the indication is or what the expectation should be. So that's where I really got into, and this was really before signal detection, signal management was even happening. This was like around 2010. How can I, because the system that we were using was very good for data collection and reporting. At that time, it was right around the dawn of electronic reporting, but we were still printing paper
Oh,
reports
nice.
and faxing them and then sending them to FDA. Like, I mean, it was manual. It was very laborious. I sound like one of those old people, like
Yeah.
back in the day.
When you when you
So,
said that, I thought of, like, the big printer paper that was, like, kind of green and, like, gray and green and gray
right.
that had
Yeah.
the
The holes.
yeah, and it'd go boop, 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 and it would accordion.
It felt an awful lot like that. I'll tell you what, the people that worked in our team that managed all that, I really have to take my hat off to them. Because I remember one time I had to do that because somebody was out
Oh no.
sick or something on vacation, and I got it all screwed up. I mean, it was so difficult
Yeah.
to do. And also, like in Georgia, like sometimes we would have snow, and
Wait,
somebody had to
what?
figure out a way to get to the office and print the reports because we had regulatory
It was like
timelines. Like you can't
Snowmageddon.
go.
What year was that?
Oh yeah. Oh, that was crazy. When was it? That was like around
Yeah,
2014,
I remember
2015.
that. That's I know I wasn't
Yeah.
there. I lived in Georgia from 1999 to 2009. And so and then
Okay.
moved back I
Yeah.
moved to Mississippi, and then I was in Mississippi then. It was the year before we moved because I retired from the Air Force in 2015 and we moved to Nashville. But
So 14 might have
yeah,
been it.
I
Yeah.
remember looking at it going, "Whoa, that's crazy."
It was crazy. It came down so
Oh yeah.
fast. That was the crazy thing. The
Kids
snow
got
came.
stuck at school and on the bus. That's terrible. Man,
Yeah.
but anyway, no, I had a lot of friends that were, still lived in Georgia, and they're showing on their social media all the stuff that was happening. Like, dude parked like 8 miles from his house because he couldn't get there on the road, so he just walked home. I'm like, what? And he's showing like all these cars just parked off the road, and then partly because well they got off the road and they couldn't get back on, so then they just walked home. So anyway,
It was really I mean, we haven't had anything that bad since. Yeah.
yeah.
That was
We had snow last year on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. That was
Oh, really?
bananas. Yeah. It was wait, what year was that? Was it last year? It was last year. Yeah, it was crazy. It was like sunny outside, and I look outside and I was like, what in the world is happening? It's snowing. And we ended up getting 5 or 6 inches in my neighborhood. Shut down. Everything was
Wow,
shut
that's a
down.
lot. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. If they shut everything down, everybody's at home, you know what you can
Yeah,
stock up, that's fine. I think it's because this thing just popped up and everybody was at school
yeah,
and work
yeah,
and the snow really started coming down hard like around 4,
yeah.
so everybody thought, "Oh, I'm just gonna, rush home," and it just
No,
dumped so much
rush
volume.
home in Atlanta. That's a good one. Yeah.
85's wide open at 4
Oh my
a.m.
gosh, yeah. So, what was the, like, how did your career path start to shift in there? Like, when um, you're, like, doing this data job, right? And so hang on, I have to note that a lot of people, I was gonna say us, I guess I can include myself, were in some kind of role that then all of a sudden we had to do something with data, and then we're like, "Hey, I really like that," and other
Mhm.
people, our paths are diverged because they're like, "Well, I don't like that stuff because that's too technical," or, "I don't like that," and they go that way, right?
Mhm.
I often see, especially people who started in data roles probably before 10 years ago, I would say, um,
Mhm.
were like sucked into the vortex of data instead of going like to school for something data. Now there's a lot of schools that do data stuff. When I started my
Yeah.
master's in data analytics in 2016, there were not very many master's programs in analytics. Um, probably, I don't know, less than 20 schools. Yeah, and then like now they're like everywhere. Ah!
Everywhere,
Yeah.
yeah. Data or data
Yeah.
scientist,
Oh,
yeah.
and then I also wanted to say, like, with survey data, it's so awesome that, yeah, you notice that's like that's like gold. You're gold mining
Yeah,
because it's so hard to get survey data back from anybody,
yeah.
absolutely anybody. Every company that I've worked for is like, hey, don't forget to do your employee engagement survey. If you don't do it, we're gonna tell the vice president or whatever. You're gonna be in trouble. And like up until it's not even the last day. It's like a week later. Hey, somebody's getting notified, hey, yeah, so and so said you haven't done your thing. Oh yeah, that's right. And then the some of the data you get back on those surveys is not useful at all. So the pharmacovigilance, that's pretty cool that you recognize the value of the data, at the time when you started working with it. Okay, this is enough for me. So um so then what is this signals thing that you were talking about? What is that called?
Yeah. So, but I think back, just
Oh
real
yeah,
quick,
yeah,
back to your prior point about like the shift. For me, the shift happened. Well, I mean, one shift was moving from private practice, like hands-on,
yeah.
spaying and neutering dogs one day and looking at slides and like doing the actual work of veterinary medicine, to going to still utilizing that knowledge and those skills, but kind of going to a step away role where that work was supporting veterinarians and enabling them to have safe and efficacious products for their patients. And that, for me, once I realized, oh, there's vets out here who are actually supporting other vets and keeping their eye out and making sure that the things that we have on our shelves, somebody's monitoring those and making sure that there's not something we need to know about with those, seemed like a worthwhile way to spend your time.
Right.
Because I always look at, as a mom, I look at whatever work I'm doing, it needs to bring value enough for me to justify being away from my kids. So, this seemed like something that was really helping our veterinary profession. And so that was the first shift. The second shift was, yeah, starting to see all this data come in and realize two things. I want to meet these regulatory obligations completely. I don't want to have any compliance problems, but I want to do it as efficiently as possible so that I can open up more time to utilize this data the way I want to utilize it.
Mhm.
Because the health authority, requires that we do certain things by certain
Right.
timelines and all that, because that makes sense, because they want to make sure that, everybody's doing what they should be doing and that they're having visibility to the data, and that's fine. But so part of that now is like, well, what can we, appropriately automate, or, in a validated system and electronic reporting that then came to be in, around 2011 time period or so that we weren't printing pieces of paper. Instead, we were pressing a button and a report would magically go through an electronic gateway to a health authority. So really encouraged by things like that, seeing
Yeah.
that technology take off. But then the other side of it is, okay, now we've created some efficiency over here. I have a little time. What do I want to do with that? And some of it was developing ways to systematically identify trends or cases of interest because of severity, because of changing frequency, because of, how
Oh,
do I first think about, okay, what do I want to be notified about? What are the most risky situations? Cool. Then
yeah.
how do I set up a system so that it's telling me that? Because it's so much data coming in, you know, you need to develop tools with the available technology at the time. And way back then, I actually did a partnership with SAS, and we developed a whole signal detection platform at Marielle, and it used a lot of CPU. Let's put it that way. And so the statisticians were a little irritated with me because my signal detection runs were running and it was slowing down the work that they were trying to do. So, and it was quite expensive to maintain. So it was a good first prototype, but it also was something that it wasn't scalable. It wasn't something that was going to work well. And the next direction, and I think that's what initially happens, for these types of technology where there's nothing out there, you're working in blue space. It's what is my What's the business problem that I need to solve?
Mm-hmm.
What do I have? What's currently there? You got to kind of do it once. It's messy. It's not going to work 100%, but you learn so much from that experience. And then I've just reiterated that multiple different times. So by the time that we were working together, I had already done some data visualization work with pharmacovigilance data.
Mm-hmm.
So now I knew exactly what I wanted, but had realized, okay, but there were things that were good about that and things that were lacking in that this go round.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can, try to build out and improve those things. And that's what, it's continuous improvement. That's what
Yeah.
we continue to do.
Nice.
So, but it's not just about doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
It's also about making sure, because we work in a regulated environment, and I should have said this at the beginning, all of these statements are mine alone and have nothing to do with or the University of Georgia, because my two employers. So, but a big part of it is being able to have access to the data
Mm-hmm.
real time and having comfort in the accuracy of it, but also for the work that I do, trending, signal detection, being able to visualize it and being able to see the picture, one, for picking up on those signals. The other side is for explaining it. Because I sat in so many meetings early in my PV career at prior companies where I would present and there was always a yeah, but. So I would explain like the whole PV profile of something and people would say, yeah, but what does that look like in Europe as compared to the US? What does that look like for dogs as compared to cats? What did that look like 3 years ago as compared now? Perfectly valid
Yeah.
questions. But never did I present and people said, huh, very interesting thinking. There was always
More questions.
something.
Yeah.
So that's where kind of the tools that you and I worked on were so necessary, because I couldn't say, well, let me get back to you and go take 2 weeks to try to figure out that answer, because they'd be like, I don't even remember answering that question. I needed on demand, visualization, access to data solutions so that I could go, oh, I don't know, let's look, click, 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 click. Oh, you know what? It's actually higher in this region as compared to that region. And that gives that individual, probably a cross-functional colleague, that little key bit of information that they need. And they're going to go off and go and ask, hey, did you know that blah, blah, blah is blah, blah, blah? Why is that?
Yeah.
We need to look into that. Now, if I didn't have that data access and that ability at that time, that never would have happened. And then whatever happened after that never would have happened. You can't know how that like
ripples on a pond. Really. It's so funny because I sometimes forget, it may sound funny, I sometimes forget some of the work that I've done. And I have these conversations, I think like every other week now, with somebody who I've worked with in some capacity. And you go, oh yeah, I did something with that.
That was really cool.
I totally forgot. I did not forget, however, that like you just have to know that you're the only client that I've ever had that I had a Zoom call with or Teams call, whatever, where I used the filters. We had the hats and the sunglasses. I was told I was not very professional for that, but they laughed at me anyway.
If you're not having fun at your job, you're doing it wrong.
Exactly.
There's too many hours out of the day.
Exactly. Oh man. So how did you get to become a what is it? Associate professor at University of Georgia?
Oh,
how did
that's
come
a good
up?
story. I know, right? So I was at Mariel for many, many years. I was the global head of pharmacovigilance there. Loved it. Had the most amazing team. Shout out to my pharmacovigilantes out there. That's what we called ourselves.
That's
There's
awesome.
a picture that goes with it. But we had so much fun. We had such a great, and I had such a great leader there. I had an incredible mentor, Felipe Dolt, who taught me absolutely everything I know about regulatory, about pharmacovigilance, about management, about just everything. So anyway, he was involved long, long time ago with the University of Georgia's regulatory affairs program, part of the College of Pharmacy. And first, he had suggested that maybe I look into that, because just to get more knowledge and understanding about regulatory affairs in general. So I did the certificate program there. So I was a student in that program at Georgia. There was a certificate program, and then you could continue on and get your master's. I only did the certificate. And then a few years after that, he had contributed to some of the courses in that program, and asked if I would contribute to some of the as I had gotten more experience
Oh,
and
yeah.
more awareness of pharmacovigilance. He asked if I would, take over some of the pharmacovigilance um, material that was used in that course. And so I did. And then as we went through the integration with Marielle and Beringer Ingelheim, as a result of that, I left and joined Enov, which is a software solution company based out of Paris, France. And other colleagues of mine also, took other jobs. And one of those people was Grace Gouda, who took the role of leading the regulatory affairs, international biomedical and regulatory affairs program at Georgia. And so she asked me to come on board and to help her out with some of the courses. And so that's how I got involved, through a prior colleague.
Mhm,
And having worked, having been a student, having worked on a
mhm.
couple of the courses before, it just kind of snowballed into a part-time gig, which has been
Networking.
great. I mean, and it's been wonderful to meet different people at the university, and so many fabulous
Yeah.
students that bring so much, because it's a graduate
Mhm.
level program. So a lot of these people are working in these areas and
Oh,
have a
yeah.
lot of like real world experience to share, which is
Yeah,
great.
it's so interesting, every time during every show, we talk about, like, the importance of networking, and
Hmm.
each person's, experience with networking is different. I have I think, my current role was the first time. Yeah, I don't know, it's been, like, years since I got a job that was where I didn't, like, I don't even know how to say that. Oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought because I saw something, and I'm so, like, I squirrel. So yeah, my current job was the first time I had to, interview for a job that I got, in a long time, because
Hmm.
the roles that I had prior to that, was like somebody's like, "Hey, come work for me." I'm like, "Hey, let's
Right.
do it." And so, I tell people all the time who are looking for a new role or looking for a role in a different field to, build your network. And it's not always about getting a job. A lot of times it's like connecting two people. I connected so and so to so and so, and that person hired that person, and then both of those people remembered me because I helped them out, right? And sometimes they'll then connect me with somebody like, "Hey, this guy helped me out. I want to help him out." So, yeah,
For sure.
networking. It's there's so much that could come out of it. But wow, University of Georgia. So how often do you like teach classes?
Well, they're asynchronous classes, so they're online,
Oh.
and so the students are doing some of the modules at their own pace, but then we will meet and have, a number of live meetings throughout the semester, just to check in
Mhm,
or to have specific discussions. It depends on the class. I teach a couple of different classes. Uh-oh,
mhm.
Barky's back. But but it's really, I mean, and I think it's really tailored that way for working students, or for some of our students are PharmD students that are, in their rotations at the end of their program.
Oh.
So everybody's not, and even for the few, group meetings that we have, sometimes it's hard to find a time when everybody's available, because, you know, people are traveling, or they're in rotation and on call, or whatever it is.
I gotcha.
So, but it still works out pretty well, because now that we have all these different ways of communicating, recording Zoom
Mhm.
meetings so that they can watch it at another time if they couldn't attend, and just connecting via email. And then the other part of it is also advising the students that are going through the master's program and helping them with their capstone projects. That's been fascinating, to either be the direct, primary professor for some of these projects that they work on, or on committees where you're assisting with them, but they have another primary professor that's more directly assisting
Mm-hmm.
them. I mean, these students come up with such fascinating topics, and they're doing that research that regulatory professionals just don't have the time. Everybody wants to know that
Mm-hmm.
information. They're topics that's like, yeah, I'd love to have the time to dig in and read all the articles and put all this together and make an analysis, but who has time for
Right.
that? I've got a full-time job and a family and blah, blah. But they're doing that kind of
Oh,
work.
that's
And so
cool.
the work product that's coming out of those projects, I think, is so valuable to the regulatory community.
Nice.
So yeah, it's pretty
That's
neat.
cool. Well, if you had to give somebody a piece of advice who was like looking to make a change in their career, maybe not like make a huge change, but something like you did, um, what what piece of advice would you give them?
I think the most important thing is take a chance on opportunities that you think to yourself, you know, this isn't the direction I want to go per se, or I might not be 100% qualified for this. I'm shocked at how many people do not apply for positions because they don't check every
Yeah.
box on the qualification section. I mean, you should check some of them, otherwise, you're probably wasting people's time. But just because maybe you don't, it says have 5 years of experience doing something and you have three, go ahead, put yourself out there.
Yeah.
And like you say, network. You do have to kind of get out of your comfort zone and reach out to people, set up meetings with people. People are so, in general, are so kind and are so willing to help other people that if you reach out to them and say, "Hey, I'm trying to learn more about this area, or, your job, or whatever it is," if people have time, they will meet with you.
Oh yeah.
You know, a good a good thank you note after that is always a nice
Mhm.
touch. But I think you just really have to put yourself out there to try things that you think, I don't know if this is really where I want to go, because you might be surprised. Or you will get some sort of an experience that is exactly the thing you need for the next
Oh
opportunity
yeah,
that comes
that's
up.
good. Ah, that's so interesting. That's
Yeah.
really good. That's really good advice. Hmm. So anybody out there, if you're looking to do a career shift, career change, take a chance.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Take a chance.
Yeah,
Might be fun.
just do it. Yeah, I think it's so important to talk to people who are actually doing, the career, right? Whatever the thing is that you're trying to go into. I think if I had spoken to somebody who was doing like, I don't know, like I was gonna say analytics, but it's like so broad. But if I talked to somebody who was like building applications and doing stuff in databases when I first had my first analyst job, which was at the end of my Air Force career, I would have been
Mhm.
shocked because I'm like, oh, I just wanted to be a data analyst. That's all I wanted to be, was a data analyst. And then I've had a crazy career over the last 11 years. I was in consulting for like 4 years. And so it's like, hey, working with people and learning big words like pharmacovigilance, it just kind of rolls off the tongue now.
Well, I think too, when you were working with us, and so was the case with, the others that were working with us, it's like you almost have to, and I imagine this is the case for consulting, you almost have to step into their
Yeah.
world and like learn that aspect of the
Oh yeah.
business. You have to, in order to understand their business problem, understand what they're trying to do, because as well as I do, half the time people ask for something that's not the thing that they really
Yeah.
need.
No.
You need to have that conversation with them and really understand what they're getting at, so that the solution that you're eventually creating with them is actually doing what they need it
Yeah,
to do.
exactly.
And that's tough, man, because it can be all over the place when you're talking about building applications. For me, like early on when I realized I needed data visualization, I stepped out of R&D and regulatory, and I went to the finance guys
Mm,
at the company where I work. And I said, "How do you guys do this? I know y'all like do
mhm.
projections and have some way of monitoring various aspects for the financial things. How do you do that?" And they showed me, and as they're explaining and talking it through, I'm like replacing words in my head for pharmacovigilance, and I'm like, oh, I see it's the same
Yeah.
concept, but you can apply it to many different areas. So I think that's one of those reasons why it's important to step outside of your comfort zone or take a chance and learn a new
Yeah.
area, because a lot of that stuff you can repurpose or it's applicable, you know, in the next consulting client that you have, or the next job that you're doing.
Yeah, it's so interesting because like I worked with um obviously, your company, and then worked in, like, I had a banking client. I had another client who was there was like private equity, it was like accountants. I worked with accountants a lot at one company, and it was I'm like, I don't know anything about accounting, and they're like, "Oh, you don't need to know anything." And then I was on a project with somebody who like only spoke in accounting terms, and I'm like, so I was like, I need to take an accounting class. I don't understand what's happening. Why you keep saying those words? I don't know what those words mean. You can't explain words with words that I
Using
don't know. I'm like, stop it. And they're like, I don't know how to talk your language. I'm like, okay. So I actually had to take like a LinkedIn learning class. And I'm like, oh, okay. That makes more sense. And that actually helped me because my youngest daughter, she graduated from Kennesaw State with
oh, okay, yeah,
a
that's
bachelor
great.
in accounting, right? And so yeah, so we had a lot of conversations, and then she's talking, and I'm like, okay, I'm not like completely ignorant to what you're saying. I get it, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like stepping into the client's world and like really trying to figure out what the business problem is, like what they're doing currently, what they want. A lot of times they don't know what they want until they see
Mhm.
something and go, "Oh, that's not what I want," or "Oh, that's exactly what I want," or something, along the lines. And then you could like, you know, take good notes. I was told one time that I didn't take good notes. I need to take better notes so I can ask better questions. And that was a fair assessment. And I was like really mad when they told me that. But then I was like, you know what? You're right. I need to ask better questions. And if I don't take good notes, how can I do that? So shout out to Oppie.
Well, that's actionable. That's a good feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know what? It was really good having you on here, even though I thought you were not going to make it. I was so scared. I was like, well, I guess I'm going to go on here live and just say, hey, so we're canceling today's episode. Uh,
I'm here. I'm here. I have the skin in my teeth.
yeah, but it was really cool hearing about your career journey. It's very interesting. A lot of the stuff that I didn't know because I have only had a glimpse of your field. And so and then the advice that you're able to give, that's pretty cool. I appreciate that. So thanks so
Yeah.
much for coming on here. And as we close, do you
Thanks
want to
for
go ahead
having
and
me.
play something on the piano?
No. Oh my God.
Hey, it doesn't
So
hurt to
yeah,
ask. And so
yeah.
the thing that I was trying to go, I was like, what is going on? Oh, so Pastor Carlos said, you're urgently needed in Belize to teach us piano, sister. And then
Oh, I would love to visit
that's
Belize.
he because they speak Spanish now. In Orange Walk,
Oh,
Belize, most of the but everybody is like bilingual ish. They speak like lingua franca Spanish, and then probably like millennials and younger, they speak English as well. And it's the craziest
Mhm.
thing, the craziest accent probably that I've ever heard in my life. They speak Spanish like they came out of the womb speaking Spanish, and then they, as the kids say, code switch into English with this Caribbean accent. It is the most bizarre thing. I was
Oh,
like, that is actually cool. Not bizarre. This is like
yeah.
cool and very. I was like, wow, you guys can keep doing that. That was really cool. But anyway, yeah. So I we're gonna end the stream, but don't go anywhere because I want to talk to you in the studio. Since we didn't really talk in the
Okay.
studio, we were kind of in a rush.
Yeah.
But everybody else will be back on in 2 weeks with my good friend Andy Yausi, he's got a really interesting story revolving around like Veggie Tales and He Man and arcade games and all kinds of cool stuff. I used to go to church with him in Nashville. He's a cool dude. And so tune in next, or not next week, week after next. But until then, peace out.